So, I actually, in some way, am more sympathetic to Hamilton's general conclusions than I am to the specific arguments. So I think that the title of the chapter that you read is Ethical Anxieties, and in some sense I think that's the right title for the chapter. There is reason to have ethical anxieties about geoengineering. That's not exactly the same as ethical arguments against geoengineering, or certainly not definitive ethical arguments against geoengineering. But I think we should wonder about whether, for example, there's a principled distinction between godlike interventions in nature and human-like interventions. So, whoops, oh dear, that was really the wrong thing to do. Okay, good. Again, so he's saying the grander schemes to regulate the human trespass in a domain properly beyond the human. Well, really? And what is that domain? And how do we know what that boundary is? And we can go on to ask whether there is a principal distinction between what he calls the lure of the technofix and attempts to use technology to promote welfare, right? Is a liver transplant. You can take someone who's an alcoholic and you can say, you should stop drinking, you should protect your liver, you should protect, but you could also give the person a liver transplant. Are you techno-fixing a behavioral and what some people would say is a moral problem here? Some people would say yes. And how do we know how to draw that distinction? In the late medieval period, there was a theological discussion about how dredging rivers and digging wells was actually playing God. Because if God wanted the river to be like that, he would have made it like that. Okay? What are we doing? Usurping the role of God, going further than humanity is supposed to go, right? So again, maybe Hamilton is right. Maybe there are domains in which, for reasons of principle, humanity ought not to trespass. But how do we know what they are? And to some extent, doesn't it involve human welfare? Or the welfare of all sentient beings, right? Aren't we more inclined to think it's okay to use technology in a particular area if it actually makes things better? And so the question I think we have to ask here is when it comes, Hamilton wants to make these in principle arguments against geoengineering. There's certain things about geoengineering